Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Reate Jack 2. This one's sporting a beautiful Damasteel blade. Let me start off here with something. This is going to be a little bit different. First off, yes, you can actually buy this knife right now, the version of it that comes with the M390 blade. What the heck, is that a detachable blade? Yes, it is. A lot of people watching my channel know about this knife. If you don't know about this knife, one of the weird features of it is you can actually remove the blade from the spine and attach, in this case, we have the Damasteel blade, we have the M390 blade, and then we have a comb. Wild, right? Very weird. You can buy this knife. I will include it down in the description. It is the version that only comes with the M390 blade. It is an expensive knife. If you don't know anything about Reate, Reate has some of the greatest manufacturing precision work that I've ever seen. These knives are absolutely above and beyond in terms of complexity and fit and finish work, and there's so much here. I'm gonna start this off by saying right off the bat, if you are a knife person, if you are a knife enthusiast, you've explored into the territory of, in this case, a $475 knife at base. If this is your territory, right? This is so weird and so interesting. I'm going to tell you right now, you can watch the whole review. This is awesome. This is going to appeal to you as the knife enthusiast. This is going to be something that, you know, you're going to like, right? Now, for everybody else wondering, you know, what makes it a good tool, what makes it a bad tool, I've never really delved into this price range before, or holy crap, I had no idea that knives were that expensive. Maybe not. But yeah, for people who are, I'm not trying to make it's a club, right? I'm just saying for people who are definitely knife people, who've definitely been in this territory before, you know who Reate is, right? You're wondering, is this going to make me feel good as a knife person who's spent this much money before? Yes. Oh my God, this is so weird. I love this thing for so many reasons beyond just the fact that it is a folding tool that cuts. There's a lot to love here as a knife enthusiast. I've wanted to get my hands on this ever since I found out that it came out, because I used to own the Jack 1. One of my earliest reviews on this channel was the original Jack through Reate. So there you go. Links in the description, as well as links for Reate knives in general. This knife was sent to me by this person here. Check them out on Instagram. It's because of people like them that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. So thank you so much for sending that. And also thank you to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. If you'd like to get your hands on some cool stickers and some other benefits, there's of course a link down in the description. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All right, let's go ahead and get some measurements out of the way. Overall length of the Reate Jack 2. This is not a small knife, not by a long shot, coming in at about 8.7, not quite 8.75. Blade length is coming in at 3.75 inches. Cutting edge is coming in at almost exactly 3.5 inches. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, the Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so you can see there it's definitely bigger than the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? The Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? This is a Reate knife. It's running on bearings. It is an integral, meaning the frame is all one piece of titanium. That is a huge factor when it comes to the price of this knife. It does not matter that it is just titanium and Damasteel and carbon fiber, right? It is the extra details and the elements, the way that it is made, how much work goes into this knife versus something that costs $150, $160, and is also utilizing carbon fiber, titanium, and M390, or I've never seen Damasteel at that price range, but right. So those factors all have a lot to do with it. An integral titanium knife definitely costs more to make than something that is a sandwich construction or pillar construction titanium frame lock, or subframe lock in this case, because that's what this is. Anyways, the action is great. It is very smooth. It's not quite completely false shut, but if you guys have watched my channel for a while, you'll know that I actually don't prefer guillotine action. I like controlled false shut action, but in this case, this is fully acceptable. It takes just a couple of wiggles and it falls into place. absolutely frictionless, very smooth, very satisfying. The detent is nice and clicky. Give you guys a look at that here real quick. Click, and the action is bam, snappy. And the flipper tab is shaped appropriately. There's some jimping on there. It's not harsh. Landing zone is good. You can play with this knife over and over and over again. I mean, in terms of flipping it over and over and over again. No double clutch, anything like that. Perfectly acceptable. Really satisfying to flick or click. And actually, these external stops do function as a means of deployment. Now, as far as the reverse flick goes, I don't know if I can get underneath it, but if you want to just use your thumb, you can do that. It's much easier to just use the flipper tab. Even just after 2 flicks, actually, that kind of hurts. So you can do it, but it's easier to just use the flipper tab. Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, it has a unique feeling because it is an integral. There isn't that, I don't know, it's not necessarily reverberation that you get in a pillar construction knife, but because it's an integral, it's got a different feeling to it. It's got a satisfying, sort of unique feeling to it. I really like that. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Yeah, the Reate jack is pretty thick. You're looking at, you know, the titanium, and then you're looking at this disc of additional disc of titanium that's there to house the bearings. And you know, frankly, it just kind of looks odd and different. And then you have contoured fat carbon fiber scales that also add some thickness to it. This is thick. It definitely is. It's not milled out on the inside. So that's just the case there. Now, in terms of length and height, up against 2 knives that are a bit awkward in the pocket, and nobody ever complains about the PM2 and Para 3. You can see there, it's it's about this, maybe a little bit longer than the PM2. It's definitely longer than the Para 3, right? In terms of height, even including the flipper tab, it's nowhere near as tall. Basically, where it's going to be cumbersome is thickness and overall length. The blade stock, it's not really the blade stock. It's actually it's the titanium component that holds the blade in place. Let's go ahead and measure it, just so you guys know, because that's the part of it that matters, right? That's the part that's going to have to pass through material, which is another thing in and of itself. We'll talk about it. Whew, boy, it is thick up there. Definitely. That's going to be for people actually planning on buying this and using it, which I got to be honest with you guys, this knife is going to appeal to the enthusiast who just appreciates it for the odd beast that it is. Yes, there probably are people who use this. In fact, there's probably quite a few people who own this knife and actually use it, right? But if it were me, I mean, this knife is definitely meant to appeal to the enthusiast crowd. That is definitely what this was built for. It's built to be used, right? I mean, in terms of like, is it durable enough to actually carry with you? And yeah, 100%. But the elements here tell me like they really wanted to reach out to enthusiasts. And I think they did a lot of things successfully there, which is why I tell you, if you're a knife enthusiast and you're okay with spending this type of money, there's a lot here that's going to bring you happiness, definitely, right? But that's something to point out for people who plan on using it. It's pretty thick up there. Weight on this guy, the jack that I had was heavy. This guy's also gonna, not crazy though. I thought it was gonna be 6 ounces. This knife has much more of a presence in terms of mass than, you know, it feels heavier than it is. You know, unfortunately it does. 5 ounces, that's definitely gonna be over the mark for a lot of people. It's definitely gonna be cumbersome if you're wearing athletic shorts or skinny jeans. And honestly, it might feel a little bit thick, you know, even if you are wearing more heavy duty pants, but you'll adapt to it. I like to carry knives with some extra heft and solidity. My range is 4 to 6.5 ounces. This falls in there. It's not so big that it's not going to fit in a normal jean pocket. It's going to be fine. So, you know, do with that information what you will. I would do a hardware check, but truthfully, this knife is too beautiful, and I really don't want to accidentally put a mark on that. Because of the finish of the titanium, if I were to slip, I could easily leave a mark on the hardware or the titanium. And judging by the condition of this, it is one where the owner has kept it in absolutely perfect shape, and I'm sure he would not appreciate it if I put a scratch on it. I can tell you guys, though, that the pivot is a T8, and those extra, there's a lot of hardware there. Those are all T8, and I think even these screws holding in the carbon fiber are also T8 on this side. The screws holding in the carbon fiber on this side are actually underneath, and it's like an L-shaped bit that they use to get in there, which is kind of neat, right? The presentation side of this knife is beautiful. But yeah, it's going to be T8 across the board, which is great, but there's a lot of hardware on this guy for an integral. Generally, the benefit of an integral in a utility sense, as far as disassembly, is there's very minimal hardware to take out of it. But because of the way they house the bearings in this guy, there's a lot of hardware in this guy. If this were mine, I don't think I'd ever take it apart, right? I mean, there are situations where if you're going to use this guy, if it gets dirty, you are going to want to take that apart. And the downside is you got a lot of hardware to take out of there if you're going to do that, right? But you really don't ever have to mess with the handle, so that's fine. It is what it is. I'm glad that it's at least T8. What did we not talk about there? We did action, we did a hardware check, we did the weight and thickness. Okay, let's move on. I got through that as fast as I could. I know we're 10 minutes in because I want to talk about this. This is so aesthetically odd. It is so weird in so many different ways. There's little things they did that I appreciate, you know, in other designs like the shadow boxing, the flame titanium in this case. They don't all come like this. They have so many different variants of this. I invite you to at least go look and see the different versions, right? In this case, this is a version I've never seen before with the purple hardware. And by the way, I know you guys are going to ask me, where do you get the Damascus one of the purple hardware? I don't know. I can't find it anywhere. Truthfully. And I know you guys are going to want to know if I find a Damascus one, does it come with the M390 blade? I don't think so. I don't know how the owner of this actually acquired a version of it that looks just like this. I mean, if we look at the box here, can we get it in the, I don't know if we can get it. Can we, okay. It says Jack 2 carbon fiber, 6L4V titanium, flame grain, Bowler M390, hand rub satin finish. It makes no mention of the purple hardware. The box for the one that he sent me just mentions the blade. Now, I don't know if that means he bought this knife and it just had this, and maybe it came with the purple hardware, and maybe he got the damage steel blade separately, or maybe he actually bought this one. Maybe that box is different to a different I don't know. If I find out what the deal is with that, I will include it either in the comment section or the description so you guys know what's going on there. But I've never been able to find a damage steel version of this knife that also comes with the M390 blade. I'm going to assume the hardware is stock because the comb is also purple, but it's also potentially the case that this hardware was done custom and then the comb was also anodized custom. I don't know. There are a lot of different versions of this knife out there. There are so many of them that it's really hard to track. There are some special edition versions of this knife with the damage steel blade, and I've seen one here recently with purple carbon fiber. Wild. I don't know. I know for a fact that you can buy the version of this, a bunch of different versions of the titanium and the color of the titanium, and then the M390 blade. There's a bunch of different versions that all run about $475. You can find those down there. But yeah, I don't know. But anyways, the wildness here, what the craziness is going on. You know, the texturing back here on the spine, which is similar to the Jack 1. The flame work on the titanium is very beautiful. The fat carbon fiber looks beautiful. The contrasts in this knife are just, it's so busy. And honestly, I really like damage steel. I'll take it when I can get it. But in this case, the damage steel really adds. Sometimes knives can be too busy for some people. For me, this is excessively busy, but it works because of all the different crazy lines and things. So about this, I didn't take it apart. I'm not going to take it apart, but there's plenty. You can watch Nick Shabazz's disassembly of this. It's interesting. These plates here, you take all the screws out and you take this off, and it actually houses the bearings underneath. Apparently, there's a notch cut in this that helps it hold in place, but that's interesting how they did that. Honestly, I just really like how this disc area up here looks. Yeah, it's a lot of excess parts if you want to take it apart. I think it just looks cool. The alignment of everything, the fitment of everything is so wonderful. And let me tell you guys, this is contoured and it is thick, but the feeling in the hand is so good. This feels at the end, it feels so comfortable. There's a nice choke up position. It's about second knuckle, right? This feels nice. That Warncliffe style looking blade and just the shape of the handle, the straight lines, right? Say pretty, I mean, if you were to take all of the detail out of this and just outline it, it would look like a straightforward looking knife. And then they added all the details in just the little excess little bits and things in this knife. I love how that looks. I don't like excess curvatures or crazy. I just really like this simplistic lines and the complexity in the visual details. I just really like that. Ergonomics and comfort, great. There's no sharp edges or anything that bother me at all. The pocket clip is a popsicle stick design, which normally I don't like, but honestly, it looks great with this knife because of the shape of the handle and the lines of the handle. It just looks really good. I appreciate that they went ahead and anodized the screws on this area down here because they couldn't do the same thing that they did on this side, right? But where they had to show the screws, they're anodized, so it looks nice, right? The lanyard hole is completely and totally out of the way, but it looks good. The excess milling around there, just nice. You can fit a lanyard hole, lanyard in there if you want. Go ahead and talk about the pocket clip. Carries plenty deep enough, easy to get over the pant pocket. It doesn't do that rise thing, but it's not a problem. In and out of the pocket, it's just not a problem. The thumb studs look great. I love how those look, and they double as external stops, which is an element that I really appreciate in a design. Really good. The big deal here with this knife is the blade. I am not going to detach this for the same reasons that I talked about in earlier on in the video. This is not mine. I do not want to leave a mark on it. If you want to see this disassembled, you can check out Nick Shabazz's video, but you can easily remove these screws back here, pull the blade out, and you can attach, in this case, he's actually got the M390 satin finish blade, which also looks great on this knife, or a titanium comb. Let me get this out so you guys can take a look at it. The comb, you can see here how this is shaped as it nests itself into that spine. Why? Why would you need a comb? I don't know, but it's wild. It's weird. I mean, it is a thing that's meant to appeal specifically to knife enthusiasts, right? That's you know, somebody's gonna go, that's a real expensive comb. Who would ever spend? That's not really the point, right? It's weird and it's different and it's interesting. Does it need to be? No. Will people pay for it? Yeah, they definitely will. We have so much that's so boring in today's knife world that stuff like this stands out. It's interesting. There's attention drawn to it, whether you agree with it or not, right? If you want a blade, you got a blade. If you want a comb, you've got a comb. It definitely does come with the comb. That's fun. If you live in an area where you can't carry this knife around with the blade in it, I don't think there are laws against locking combs. This is pretty not dangerous. You'd have to really try for that thing to be dangerous. And it's fun, you know, it's a conversation piece. But I mean, yeah, it's only gonna, some people are gonna find that to be absolutely ridiculous and it makes no sense. And some people are just absolutely gonna love it, right? So questions of durability in the blade, you know, cutting, is there a chance that it's gonna detach, or if you're gonna pry with it? I don't know. It's held in there pretty well. As you can see, it's not just sitting flush up against that thing. It's nested, right? I don't know what the heck you'd have to be doing with this knife to actually break that out of the, or how much more durable a knife that's just an all, you know, one piece, right? Is that, I don't know. I think you'd have to go above and beyond to test it. That's not really a concern considering who this knife was meant to appeal to. I think under normal circumstances, you're going to be just fine. I wouldn't really, there's nothing here that makes me question the durability of this setup. The blade is very thin down at the edge, and it is beautifully done. Damasteel is wonderful. For anybody wondering, Damasteel and Damascus are not the same thing. In fact, all Damascus is not created equal. You can get on, you know, Etsy and eBay and weird sites and find Damascus knives for nothing. And that's because what Damascus is made out of, it depends, right? If it's more expensive, it could be that it's the excess work that went into the knife and that there's nothing special in terms of the steels that are being used to create the Damascus. Or it could be that the steels being used to create the Damascus are really high end, and that's more so what you're paying for. In the case of Damasteel, it's actually RWL 34 and something else. The end result is that you get to enjoy the look of Damascus, but the one of the components here, one of the steels, is powder formed, which means you get even distribution of the makeup across the board. In this case, I believe that it is stainless. So the end result is a steel that looks beautiful and actually performs really well, which is not always the case with Damascus. It performs very similarly to CPM 154, which is my favorite steel. So there's a reason that people lose their mind over Damasteel. That's why I like it so much. It's really fun to look at. In this case, it's, you know, polished, and it's just awesome. God, it's cool. Here's a problem that a lot of people have already picked up on. There's a lip up here. And while it certainly does look good, I'd be lying to you guys if I said it wasn't going to cause an issue while you were cutting. If you're going to push this knife straight into cardboard or cut and drag the blade through the material that you're cutting, it's going to get hung up on this area. It's going to leave debris in those little holes. Can you do it? Sure. It's going to slow you down, though. This is not going to be the most optimal knife in almost any circumstance, right? This was a visual thing. This was them going for, you know, the visual, the craziness. They really were like, let's just go for it. It's not like they were like, let's put that on there and, oh, whoops, we didn't think about that. No, I'm sure they did. If you look at Reate's designs and a lot of the knives that come out of Reate, obviously they are performance oriented with an air of luxury and, you know, just above and beyond. You know, they always try to appeal to the enthusiast knife world, and they have done that successfully for a long time. But in this case, they just went for the visual part of it. I think it would have been just fine to leave this area totally flat, and then it would have more readily passed through material. You wouldn't get the extra visual of that lip up there, which does kind of look nice, but it would have been easier to use this as a cutting tool. And the only thing you'd have to worry about at that point are the little areas of debris that, little areas right here where it could get, debris could get caught up in there. They could have just filled that in and left that flat and it would have been just fine. In this case, the area that's still, the part of it that still looks nice is the flame work that they've done up here. It does look really great the way that it is, but that is something that's going to bother people who actually plan on using it for sure. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. We already talked about the back of this. So here's another cool feature. The steel lock bar insert is actually built into this titanium piece. It's not part of the blade. Excuse me, I bumped my camera. It's not part of the steel blade, or in this case, the damaged steel blade. It's actually part of the titanium underneath. So the lock bar insert and the steel face, right? Because it's not like you have a steel lock bar insert on the subframe lock. I said the lock bar insert's built in. The steel lock bar insert's built into the titanium bolster lock or subframe lock, sorry. But this titanium piece that's housing the blade also has a steel. Can we see it? Pick up my flashlight in the description if you want. But you can kind of see how that steel back there, it's all part of the face of this. You can see the difference in the polishing, the area where the lock bar insert meets the tang. That is actually another insert that's built into the titanium. Super cool. Super cool. Steel on steel contact. For anybody who doesn't know why that's important, it's because it'll wear much less fast than steel on titanium or titanium on titanium. Well, especially titanium on titanium. But that's never the case. It's usually a steel blade with a titanium carbidized face, which is fine. And then we've moved on to these steel lock bar inserts. But we definitely have, because of this design, a steel on steel interaction, which is great. The centering on this guy, can we see it here? It appears maybe like it's just barely ever so slightly off, and it's probably the case that it's just been flipped so much that it just needs a little bit of a turn of the pivot, right? That's fine. I'm not going to judge it for that. That's almost always the case with ultra high-end knives like this, that it just takes, as you continuously flip them, it starts to back out just a little bit. That can be fixed with blue Loctite and you get it right back where you want it to go. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't rub, locks up absolutely solid, no blade play up, down, left, or right. And the lockup percentage is about 35%. So that's great. So again, little things that I can nitpick for somebody who's planning on using it. The detachable blade thing is super cool, and the standard version of this comes with M390 satin finish. That's great. Actually, I should probably get that out for people who want to see it. Hold on. Let me clean this off because I've been touching it. It's kind of jarring to handle just a blade by itself, but that's what it looks like. And so I'll lay it down next to the knife so you can get an idea of what this looks like with this installed. I'm just sorry, there's just going to be fingerprints on it, but there you go. It looks great either way. If you're just going to be digging just the blade into something or opening packages, you're going to be just fine, which is truthfully what we're going to use it for about 80% of the time anyway. So, that's cool. But for people who are really going to go out and use this, you're going to get it hung up here, right? I don't think there's any issues with durability, so I'm not really going to talk about that too much. If you do want to disassemble this, you got a lot of screws to take out. Definitely. That is something that's going to be a little bit cumbersome. It is definitely thick, and it's going to be too heavy for a lot of people. It's also going to be illegal for a lot of people unless you are going to attach the comb. The detachable blade thing is a little bit gimmicky, but I'll welcome some gimmicky stuff. The enthusiast knife world is the part of the knife world that has got me interested in this. It's the reason that I created this channel. I like excess. I like the unnecessary. I like wow factor. This has it. The inner enthusiast in me is screaming for that. This is so cool. This is absolutely 100% right up my alley. It's why I am always itching to find out what's new, what's coming out, what's different, right? I love stuff like this. It's so wild. Reate is one of the only non-US companies that I will spend this much money with. Most of the time, the vast majority of my collection of my own personal purchases are US knives, but Reate I will always take a look at. Always. They do such a good job, and they're capable of such odd designs and just far out stuff. This is cool. I wish that they openly offered the extra blades, so that if you did do something to this, you could get another. I can't seem to find anything on the internet that suggests you can get that. I also think it would be really cool to get different blades and different blade steels. Definitely. I'm not the first person to say that by a long shot. In fact, my review is not unlike many of the reviews that are already out there on this knife. I would love to be able to get different, like if, pay $40 or whatever for a blade that's in a different steel, or $50. I would love that. I would get different ones. It'd be cool to be, to have, maybe this guy, found somebody with a Damasteel blade and said, would you sell it to me? Maybe this came with Damasteel and he bought the M391 separate. I don't know. I don't know the story on that, right? But it'd be cool to be able to change things out if you wanted to. Is it necessary? No. One blade will probably serve you just fine, forever. It's cool that you can get a comb, right? I don't know what other tools could fit in there, but it'd be fun to have different ones, right? The way that this is just awesome. I mean, there's lots of things that a user would nitpick here, right? But I wanted to include that information for somebody wanting to actually use this. But for the people who collect these kinds of things, and they are like me and are interested in these wild, crazy elements, yeah, this is definitely going to bring you joy. My most recommended knives playlist is reserved for knives that are, beneficial in a utilitarian way, that have, in some cases, some elements that appeal to the enthusiast and the collector, but knives that are just good all the way around. I think they're deserving of the price, that are going to work well as a tool, and for it's all encompassing, right? So for that reason, I cannot include this knife on that list. Do I think that the value is here for the base version? You don't have to spring for the Damasteel version unless you love Damasteel, but does $475 buy you a knife that has $475 worth of work and materials that went into it? Notice that I noted that I used that I phrased that as work and materials. If you judge the value of a knife or the cost of a knife entirely on the materials, it's okay if you personally go by that. But that system is flawed, because whether or not you, like those extra details, the fact remains is that knives that have excess work that go into them, excess machining, excess time, they factually cost more money to make. So it's okay if you don't value those extra things personally, but to suggest that that the company is greedy simply because it costs more than other knives utilizing the same materials, it's a flawed way of thinking. It simply doesn't make sense. So, is there $475 worth of knife here? Yes, but $470 worth of knife that appeals much more to the enthusiast than the user, right? Yeah, this is a knife for enthusiasts. This would be a welcome part of your collection. You will love this. For everybody else looking for a simple, straightforward cutting tool that's very cost efficient, right, and beneficial in a number of different ways, very versatile, probably not going to be for you. So this is not going to go on my most recommended knives playlist, but is it going to go on my favorite knives of all time playlist? Yeah. What are the rules for my favorite knives of all time playlist? It just has to bring me joy for whatever reason. If it brings me enough joy, if picking this thing up and handling it and just experiencing it brings me enough joy, it's going on that playlist because it brings me joy. This is awesome. Enthusiasts, you can pick this up in the description. Or I'm not going to say this is just for enthusiasts. You can't. Anybody, for any reason, if this appeals to you, there are links in the description. You can pick this up in a few different variants. This is super cool. Thank you so much again to the gentleman who lent me this knife. I'm so happy I got an opportunity to look at it. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for this very lengthy review/overview. If you guys enjoyed, by the way, follow me on Instagram. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.